We are ready to work on practice 8-1, creating human tasks. And as always, the assumption is fairly straightforward that you have done the practice up until now. Also, take a look at the very first note. This one again can be done in BPM Studio or Process Composer. We are recommending that you use the same tool you used back in practice 7-1, although you technically don't have to. I'm going to step one I can skip because it says if you are using BPM Studio, do the following. Didn't use it, we are not going to use it in the exercise. We'll continue using process composer. So in this step 2, the high level instruction is using the tool you have selected, display the validation errors, and it asks a couple of questions. So let's go that details instruction for a business process composer. Step A, click the validate on the project toolbar. So I'm in the project, I'm in the toolbar, and click on validate, and I can see there's 8 validations errors. And so our question says, well, how many validations are listed? Sure enough, 8. And the next question is what validation will appear for the 3 user tasks in the process. Well, there is 3 user tasks and they have the same thing in common. There is no implementation defined for them. And sure enough, that's what it says. And says now move on to task 3. The reason why is because these are detailed instructions for BPM Studio. So we move on to 3. It says using the implementation view on the view of the capture loan request, user takes task, create a human task, configuring it as follows. Examine all the views of the editors, but leave the other values at their defaults. And then it has some additional questions. We are going to address each of these as we go through the details instruction for the business process composer. So if validations view is still open, close it. Well, let's just drop it down right there. It's closed out of our way. Next step, open up the loan application for editing. So let's open it for editing right there with that button. Next, open the loan process, right click capture loan request and select implement. So we open the loan process, the capture loan request, we right click, and now we are ready to implement, and it brings this up, and uh, the code says the implementation view appears, and it does. Next step, to the right of the human task, will click add. So that's right on here, so we click that little green add, and it says enter capture loan task as its name. If you'll notice, it has to be all one word. You can't use any spaces. This is actually going to be the name of the task file, so that has to be truncated word. It's created. Click apply changes, and then click the edit icon. So we are going to apply our changes, and now the edit icon is right here. This one looks like it, but that's the eraser, so that's the delete. So I can I click on the edit icon, which will allow me to open up the capture load task file artifact. Okay, let's move on, and it says in here, once we have done that, the basic tab is displayed, which we can see, and at this point it wants us the task title field. Give it the title. We are going to take this title. Obviously the title can be anything with spaces or whatever. If you notice, while I'm over here, we could also have chosen XPath expression that could take some dynamic information into this task title. A little bit more of advanced topic to cover later. And then in J it says display the routing slip and data views while it asks these questions. So the first question is, what human workflow pattern does capture load request use? Well, that would be in routing slip. So if I go there, I can see it's participant, the single participant pattern, which is simply using the uh, initiator. What outcomes are defined? Well, if I go the basic tab, there I can see the outcomes. There is just one submit outcome. Now while I'm here, it's a good time to point out that if I wanted to change that to something else, I could, and I can even define and create myself a new outcome. I'll just put demo new outcome to uh, illustrate that for you. And I could add that, and I could use the attend state. Of course we are not going to do that, so cancel out of that. All right, moving on here, it says by default or meet deadlines set, and of course we can say that the answer to that one is no. I can see deadline is by default, it never expires and has any task data when we find. If I go to the data tab, I can see that it is empty, so the answer to that one is also no. It said move on to the task 4. Again, the detailed instructions for BPM Studio starts here. So let's go past the studio instructions down to the task 4. it says similarly, we are going to create a human task for the review learn application, user task, and configure it with these values. And it asks us some questions about that. And notice there is no details instruction, so I'm going to go ahead and use that as my approach here. Let's go to the review loan application. I'll save, go back to my loan process, review loan application. Click on implement. We are going to add a new human task and the name that they wanted us to use for the review loan task. So we'll paste that in here. This is just what we did with the other one. And then we are going to click on edit, give them its title, which in this case is review loan details. Sorry. And uh, it says we want to the outcome to be approve and reject, and we'll have noticed that approve and rejects are already there by default. And now it's going to ask us some questions, so let's go ahead and save that and answer those questions. What human workflow pattern does review loan application use? And again, we can see it's a simple pattern by looking at routing slips, simple single participant patterns. All right. By the way, if we were in the BPM studio, we could see the specific pattern here, and here we just simply see the participant list. What outcomes are defined by default? We already saw that. That's approve and reject. And now we are ready to move to step 5, and the instructions are very similar. Create a human task for the underwriter user task. Here is name, here is outcome, and save your changes. So as we'll see, let me go ahead and paste this. This is going to be exactly like the one we just did, except it's for this task under writer review. So we'll right click and implement, create a new task, give it a name, and now we'll click on edit, provide a title. I believe it's supposed to be a underwriter review, and I believe and outcomes of approve and reject are already there. So we save our changes which we have done, and if we go back over here to our project home, we'll notice then the 3 human tasks have been defined and created. We just haven't done much with them with data yet. All right, so step 7 says go ahead and display violation errors for the project again and compare the results of those. Now, of course, the business process composer, the way we do that is we click on the validations, and we can see we are down now to 5 validation error. Why? Well, I just implemented 3 user tasks, all with I didn't do much to them yet, but enough to technically satisfy that validation error. And then it's asked there are still validation error for user task. Yes and no. The only ones left now are for the non-user tasks. This is what we saw in our environment. This is what it looks like in Studio. So we can move on to the step 8 where it says we are going to need to publish our project. If you are using Composer, click publish, offer a comment to describe the change, and release the lock. And of course, if you are using Studio, you would do a save. We are using Composer, so let's go back over here. Let's go ahead and close that down. We'll do a publish, and we'll say that we completed our practice. This is it one, I believe. Yes, I'll just steps, and we are releasing the lock. Click on publish, and I try to click it, you know, uh, twice. That's why I got the little note. And load applications we can see now is open for viewing, but it has been published and the lock has been released. And that ends practice 8 as 1. Thank you.